Hey there! My name is Kira, and when I was 16, my parents left me at an airport as a lesson. No warning, no money, just a text message that read, "Let's see how long it takes you to get home." That was the day I realized I wasn't their child. I was their experiment. A game piece in their twisted version of parenting, where love was measured in control and cruelty was disguised as teaching me a lesson. But here's the thing about lessons. Some of them you never forget. For years, I thought they had lost me that day, that maybe after all this time, they regretted it, that maybe in some twisted way, they actually missed me. But when they found me 20 years later, I learned the truth. They never looked for me, never wanted me back. They used my disappearance for sympathy, for money, for power. And now, after decades of silence, they're knocking on my door, demanding something I swore I'd never give them again. So tell me, what would you do if the people who abandoned you once came back, expecting you to save them? Would you let them back in? Or would you finally walk away? Because this time, I'm not the lost girl at the airport. This time, I get to decide how the story ends. The past never truly disappears. It lingers, stretching like a long, dark shadow over the life you've built. You tell yourself you've moved on, that it no longer has a hold on you. But then, a message appears on your screen, and suddenly, you're 16 again, standing in an airport with a dead phone and the sinking realization that no one is coming back for you. 39 missed calls. At first, I ignored it. I was in a meeting, discussing logistics for a multi-million-dollar project in downtown Houston. My life was structured, controlled, built brick by brick with my own two hands. There was no space for chaos, no room for the past, but the screen kept lighting up, buzzing like a wasp trapped in a jar. Unknown number. "Kira, please pick up. They found you." I had no choice but to give them your number. "I'm sorry, Vesper." My breath caught, my hands pressed against the cool conference table to steady myself. They found me. I didn't need her to say who they were. Marlo and Orrin Monroe, the people who used to be my parents. 16 years ago, Houston International Airport, that July day, was suffocatingly hot. We had just returned from a family trip to Florida. Not that it felt like one. I had spent most of it tiptoeing around my parents' unpredictable moods. One moment, everything was fine. The next, I was walking out of the restroom, wiping my hands on my jeans, only to find the seats where they had been waiting empty. At first, I wasn't worried. Maybe they had moved closer to the gate. I walked, checked, walked some more. Then my phone buzzed. "Mom, let's see how long it takes you to get home. A lesson in independence. Don't call us." My hands went numb. My heart pounded so hard, I thought it might crack my ribs. I tried calling anyway, straight to voicemail, over and over again. I waited. An hour? 2. Security started eyeing me. A woman approached, asking if I was lost. "No," I said, my voice hollow, "just waiting for someone." But no one came. By nightfall, I was that kid, sitting on a bench, trying not to cry. I had $40 in my wallet. My bank account was frozen. I had nothing. Security eventually told me I couldn't stay overnight. That's when it hit me. They weren't coming back. They had left me there, on purpose. And I was completely, utterly alone. Present day, I snapped back, gripping my phone like it might dissolve in my hands. I was not that girl anymore. I had fought for everything I had. And now they thought they could just find me? After 20 years? A new message popped up. "Vesper. Mom's crying. Dad's furious. They need to talk to you, not want, not miss you, need." Of course, they did. Orrin Monroe never did anything unless it benefited him. Marlo cried on command if it got her sympathy. The only reason they were reaching out now was because they wanted something. And Vesper, I had always believed she might be different, that maybe, just maybe, she had the potential to be something more. But now, giving them my number? She had chosen her side. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the polished floor. The room, full of developers, contractors, my project manager, fell silent. Everything okay, Kira? I forced a tight smile. Just an old ghost trying to knock on my door. Before anyone could question me, I walked out. I had spent 20 years pretending those people didn't exist. I wasn't about to let them change that now. I blocked the number. Then, without hesitation, I turned off my phone. But somehow, I knew. This wasn't over. Some ghosts refused to stay buried. I thought blocking the number would be enough. That ignoring them, pretending they didn't exist, would keep them out of my life. But people like Oren and Marlo Monroe never let go when there's something left to take. And apparently, neither did Vesper. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. It was late. Too late for a neighbor. Too late for a package. My body tensed as I walked toward the door, my bare feet silent on the cool hardwood floor. Downtown Houston's city lights flickered against the windows, casting long shadows across my apartment. I hesitated before looking through the peephole. Vesper. Of course. She looked thinner, her long brown hair pulled into a messy bun. Her arms were wrapped tightly around herself, shifting from foot to foot. She looked desperate. I considered pretending I wasn't home. But I knew Vesper. If she had come all the way here, she wouldn't leave without saying whatever she came to say. I exhaled through my nose and opened the door. Relief flashed across her face. Kira. No. My fingers tightened around the edge of the door. Her mouth snapped shut. Please, she whispered. Just hear me out. I should have slammed the door. Instead, against all common sense, I stepped aside. The second she was inside, I regretted it. She glanced around my apartment, minimalist, clean, controlled, and let out a hollow laugh. You really did it, huh? I folded my arms. What do you want, Vesper? She hesitated, searching for the right words, the ones that would make me care. They're in trouble, she finally said. I scoffed. They're always in trouble. No, Kira, this is different. It's bad. I raised an eyebrow. Enlighten me. She licked her lips, hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. You're stalling, I said flatly. She exhaled. Dad took out loans, a lot of them. But they weren't real, Kira. He faked assets, moved money through shell companies. It's fraud. They're being investigated. I leaned against the counter, unimpressed. Sounds like a them problem. They could go to prison, she said, voice breaking. Sounds about right. Her shoulders sagged. They need help. I laughed, sharp, cold. They need me? I shook my head. Unbelievable. They're desperate, she whispered. I rolled my eyes. They don't get to be desperate now, not with me. Vesper took a step closer. Kira, no. My voice was steel. You don't get to show up here and expect me to save them. They're still our parents. Something snapped inside me. No, I said, dangerously quiet. They stopped being our parents the moment they left me standing in that terminal. Tears filled her eyes. You don't understand? I stepped forward, inches from her face. Oh, I understand perfectly. They abandoned me, let me believe I wasn't good enough to love. And now, when they finally remember I exist, it's because they need something. She shook her head. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, I snapped. Her breath hitched. I tried to protect you. I laughed, bitter. By letting me think they were just bad parents instead of criminals? I thought if you never knew, you wouldn't get involved. I shook my head, disgusted. And yet, here you are, dragging me back in. She opened her mouth, but I was done. I walked to the door and pulled it open. Get out. Kira, I mean it. She hesitated, searching my face for something, anything, that would make me change my mind. But there was nothing left for her to find. She exhaled, nodded once, and stepped past me into the hallway. Paused. They're still family, Kira. I met her gaze, voice cold. Not anymore. I shut the door, locked it. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty about it. I pressed my hands to the counter, steadying myself. Vesper was gone. They were gone. I had cut the cord. But then my phone buzzed. Another message. Unknown number. Ignoring us won't change the past. We're coming. A chill ran down my spine. They weren't done. Not even close. Some wounds never truly heal. They linger beneath the surface, festering, waiting for the right moment to be torn open again. As I stared at the unknown number flashing on my phone screen, I felt the first crack in the foundation of the life I had built. I shouldn't have answered. I should have ignored it, tossed my phone aside, and moved on. But I didn't. I slid my finger across the screen. Silence. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 20 years. Ignoring us won't change the past, Kira. My stomach clenched. I would recognize that voice anywhere. Orrin Monroe. I hung up without a word, my hands trembling around the phone. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I wasn't 16 anymore. I wasn't stranded in an airport, waiting for them to change their minds and come back for me. I was a grown woman, successful, independent. They had no power over me. At least, that's what I told myself. I paced my apartment, trying to shake the feeling that something rotten had slithered its way back into my life. I needed a distraction. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and started sorting through emails. Work updates, contracts, the usual noise. Then something caught my eye. Subject, account closure confirmation. My chest tightened. It was from an old bank I hadn't used in years. I clicked the email, a formal notice confirming that a trust account in my name had been closed. 20 years ago. That didn't make sense. My parents had set up that account when I was a child, for college, for my future. But after they abandoned me, I never thought about it again. I opened the attached statement. My breath caught. The account had been emptied before I even turned 18. 20 minutes later, I was on the phone with the bank. Most of the representatives were useless, hiding behind outdated policies. But then, finally, someone slipped. Your parents were the account holders until its closure. My grip on the phone tightened. They took my money. Before they abandoned me, before they left me in that airport, they had already stripped me of everything. I swallowed back the lump in my throat. This wasn't just neglect. This was deliberate. And I wasn't done looking for answers. There was only one person who might have left something for me. Annika Monroe. She was the only adult in my family who had ever looked at me like I mattered. Before she passed, she had mentioned setting up a separate fund for me, a safety net in case I ever needed it. I searched for the lawyer who had handled her estate, found a number, dialed it. Jameson and Associates, how can I help you? I'm looking for information on a fund left by Annika Monroe. I kept my voice steady. I believe it was created before her passing. A brief hold, then a new voice. Yes, I remember the case, the lawyer said. Then a pause. But I'm afraid that account was drained before the will was finalized. My stomach dropped. Drained? Yes. Before the estate could be distributed, the funds were already withdrawn. I felt cold all over. Who had access to it? Another pause. Then the answer. Only two people, Orrin Monroe and Vesper. I ended the call and sat back, my heart pounding. Vesper. The same sister who had stood in my apartment hours ago, looking at me with wide, guilt-ridden eyes. She had known. She had known what they did. And she had participated. I had spent years believing that maybe, just maybe, Vesper had been different. That she had been a victim too, caught in their web of manipulation. But now I wasn't sure if she had ever been on my side at all. The past wasn't just full of betrayals. It was full of buried secrets. And this time, I wouldn't let them stay hidden. Sitting in the sterile conference room of Jameson and Associates, I drummed my fingers against the polished table. The air conditioning hummed softly, a stark contrast to the storm inside my chest. Across from me, David Calloway, a gray-haired lawyer, shifted uncomfortably. He hadn't expected me here. Neither had I. But after uncovering the truth about my stolen trust fund and Annika's missing money, I needed answers. Ms. Monroe? Calloway said, his hands clasped. You're looking for old legal records concerning your father? I nodded. Anything sealed, buried. I want to know everything. His expression tightened. Some records are protected, even from family. I leaned forward. I don't care how protected they are. If they exist, I want them. Calloway hesitated. I can't. Don't lie to me, I cut in coldly. I know my mother paid good money to make things disappear. I just want to know why. His throat bobbed. Then he slid a folder toward me. I scanned the page. Defendant, Orrin Monroe, charged domestic assault, sealed record. Date, April 2nd, 1998. Case status, expunged upon testimony from Marlo Monroe. My stomach dropped. I clenched my jaw and read further. Second arrest, July 14th, 2001. Victim, Vesper Monroe Vesper. The same sister who had stood in my apartment, asking me to help him. Your mother paid to have both records sealed, Calloway said. She claimed the first was a misunderstanding, the second, an accident. I forced myself to breathe. And the charges? Expunged, he said, as if they never happened. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped me. I had believed my mother was trapped with Orrin, that she was a victim too. I was wrong. She wasn't weak. She was his shield. I left the law office on autopilot, my legs carrying me through the city. Before I could think, I pulled out my phone and dialed. Vesper picked up on the third ring. Kira? Her voice was hesitant. You knew, I said, calm and deadly. A pause. Knew what? Don't play stupid. You knew he hurt you. You knew he hurt others. And you let Mom cover it up. Silence. Tell me I'm wrong, I challenged. She didn't. I was scared, she whispered. Scared? My voice rose. You let me believe Mom was one of us, that she was another victim. She wasn't Vesper. She was his damn accomplice. She sucked in a breath. You thought ignoring it would make it go away? I cut her off. That pretending would stop him? A shaky breath. I didn't want to break the family apart. The family was already broken, I spat. You just helped them keep up appearances. More silence. When I was 16, alone in that airport, what were you doing? Crying in your room? Or sitting at the dinner table with them, pretending I never existed? A sob broke through the line. I felt nothing. You're just like her, I said coldly. You let it happen. I'm sorry, she whispered. I exhaled, shaking my head. No, you're not. Then I ended the call. I drove home in silence, my grip white-knuckled on the wheel. This was never just about money. Orrin wasn't just a narcissist. He was a violent monster. And Marlo? She made sure his sins were wiped clean. And Vesper? She was too much of a coward to stop them. I pulled into my apartment garage and turned off the engine, staring blankly ahead. There was no fixing this, no closure. There was only one thing left to do: expose them. They spent their lives burying the truth. Now I was going to dig it up. I thought I had uncovered the worst of it, that there was nothing left to take from me. But the past had one final betrayal to unveil, one that could have changed everything. Late in the evening, my phone rang, breaking the heavy silence of my apartment. The fading sunlight painted long shadows across the walls. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my gut told me to answer. Ms. Monroe? A deep, unfamiliar voice. Yes? This is Richard Connors. I was Annika Monroe's attorney, my breath caught. Annika, the only person in my family who had ever loved me. I'm sorry for calling you out of the blue, he continued, but I found something in my files. A letter Annika wrote for you before she passed. It was meant to be delivered, but someone claimed it on your behalf. My pulse pounded. Who? A pause. Your sister, Vesper. I drove to the law office like a woman possessed. For 20 years, I had believed Annika had died without leaving me anything, that she hadn't been able to help me, and for 20 years, Vesper had let me believe that lie. The receptionist handed me a yellowed envelope. My fingers traced the delicate script. Annika's handwriting. Back in my car, I sat frozen, staring at my name. Then, with shaking hands, I opened the letter. Kira, if you're reading this, I hope you've escaped them. But if you haven't, you need to know the truth. Your parents will never change. Your mother will always choose your father. And your father, he will always find new ways to hurt those around him. I fought for you. I tried to secure a future for you beyond them, but I don't know if it was enough. They will come for you again. When they do not trust them. Do not trust Vesper. My breath hitched. I kept reading. She loves you, but she's afraid, and because of that, she will always choose them. She will protect their secrets, even if it means betraying you. If you have to run, run. If you have to fight, fight. But whatever you do, don't let them pull you back in. You are not theirs to control. You never were. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. The rage was too consuming. Annika had known. She had tried to warn me, and Vesper had stolen that warning from me. I dialed her number. She answered on the second ring. Kira? Her voice was hesitant. No greetings, no pleasantries. Just the only question that mattered. How long have you known? A pause. Too long. About what? She whispered. Don't, I snapped. Did you know about the letter? A shaky exhale. Kira, Answer the question. Silence. Then, finally. I thought if you never saw it, you wouldn't leave for good. My vision blurred with fury. You had no right, I seethed. I was trying to keep our family together, she pleaded. There was no family, Vesper, I hissed. You let me believe I had no one. You let me think Annika abandoned me. And for what? To keep a lie alive? I thought you'd come back, she whispered, voice breaking. I never would have. My voice was steel. Not if I had known the truth. And you let them take everything from me. I didn't know what else to do, she sobbed. Once I would have cared. Once I would have comforted her. But not anymore. There is no family left, I said coldly. And then I hung up. Alone in my apartment, I stared at the letter. For years I had run from my past. Now I was turning back, to burn it down. This time, I wasn't leaving any survivors. There were lines I never thought I'd have to draw. But when my parents set their sights on Elliot, all bets were off. The call came while I was at work, deep in a security meeting. Ms. Monroe, the receptionist's voice crackled through the intercom. The principal from Elliot's school is on the line. She says it's urgent. Dread curled in my stomach as I grabbed the phone. Ms. Monroe, Mrs. Holloway's voice was careful. Your parents came by today to visit Elliot. My blood turned to ice. They said they were here to pick him up, she continued. Elliot seemed confused, so we didn't release him, but... I was already grabbing my keys. What did they say to him? A hesitation. They claimed they had permission, that they were helping with a lesson. A cold rage settled in my chest. Let's see how long it takes her to get home. My father's voice echoed in my head. I bolted out the door. I broke every traffic law racing to the school. When I arrived, my parents were there, looming over Elliot, 10 years old, too trusting. Oren smiled like a teacher, while Marlo crouched beside him, her hand on his shoulder. I barely put my car in park before I was out. Elliot! His head snapped up. Mom! Marlo stood, feigning concern. Oh, Kira, we were just catching up. I ignored her, crouching in front of Elliot. Are you okay? He nodded, but his confusion lingered. They said you wouldn't mind. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. I turned to Oren. You do not talk to him. You do not go near him. You do not even breathe in his direction. Oren chuckled. Still dramatic, I see. I stepped between them and my son. This is not up for discussion. Marlo sighed. Kira, he deserves to know his family. You, I said, my voice steel, are not his family. Oren tilted his head, smirking. And what are you going to do about it? I stepped closer. If you ever come near my son again, I will make you regret it." His smirk faltered. "Careful, sweetheart. You sound just like your mother." My fists clenched. "That's the last mistake you'll ever make," I whispered. I turned to Mrs. Holloway. "Call security. They are never allowed here again." She nodded, already dialing. Oren's face darkened. Marlowe's expression twisted, but she didn't argue. As they walked away, Oren glanced back. "This isn't over, Kira." I exhaled, turning to Elliot. "Come on, baby, let's go home." He hesitated. "Mom, what did they mean by a lesson?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "It doesn't matter. They won't be around to teach you anything." He nodded, still confused, but trusting me. As I pulled away from the school, reality settled in. I had spent years running, hoping they'd disappear. I was wrong. They came for my son. And for that, I would destroy them. I thought I knew every dark secret buried in my family's past. I was wrong. I hadn't slept. The last 24 hours had unraveled everything I believed to be true. My parents had crossed a line when they tried to take Elliot. They had proven, beyond a doubt, that they would never stop. For years, I had tried to outrun them, sever the ties binding me to them. But this wasn't just about me anymore. If I wanted them gone for good, I needed leverage. I needed proof. That was how I ended up in a dimly lit office in downtown Houston, sitting across from the private investigator I had hired less than 12 hours ago. Daniel Mercer, sharp, calculated, unreadable. He had taken my case without hesitation, promising results in 48 hours. But now, as he sat across from me, I could tell he had found something big. "You asked me to dig into Oren and Marlo Monroe," Mercer said, flipping open a file. "Bank records, property deeds, legal disputes. But I found something else." I forced myself to breathe. "What?" Mercer slid a document toward me. A birth certificate, not mine. The name printed on the paper was Annabelle Monroe, born 2 years before me. My stomach dropped. "Who the hell is Annabelle?" Mercer didn't flinch. He tapped another document, a missing persons report. "She was reported missing at 3 years old. The case was closed within a week." I scanned the report, my pulse pounding. And then I saw it. Marlo Monroe. Filed statement. There was never a child named Annabelle Monroe. The world tilted beneath me. I read it again. There was never a child named Annabelle Monroe. But that wasn't possible. Missing persons reports don't just vanish. A 3-year-old doesn't just disappear. Unless someone makes sure of it. My grip tightened on the file. "You're telling me my parents erased their own daughter?" Mercer's face was unreadable. "Legally, Annabelle Monroe never existed. No death certificate. No social security number. After the report was closed, her record stopped. It's like she was wiped from existence." Annabelle Monroe had been my sister, and my parents had erased her. I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. "What happened to her?" Mercer hesitated. "You have a theory," I pushed. He exhaled. "Cases like this don't just disappear, Kira. If I had to guess, either she was given away, or something worse happened, and your mother made sure no one asked questions." Marlo. Oren had always been the obvious monster, the manipulative tyrant who crushed everything in his path. But Marlo? She was worse, because she made the monsters. I thought back to my childhood, to every punishment, every lesson Oren had taught me. The way Marlo had watched, silent, complicit. Had she done the same to Annabelle? Had my sister been the first experiment, a failed project, a mistake they erased? Nausea twisted my stomach. "I need more," I said, voice shaking. "I need everything you can find on Annabelle. Who she was, where she went." Mercer hesitated. "Kira, if they covered this up, they did it for a reason." "Good," I said coldly. "That means I finally have something to use against them." Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It never had been. This was about all the lives they had destroyed, and I was going to make sure they never destroyed another. I left the office in a daze. The streets of downtown Houston blurred, the sun high in the sky, mocking the darkness inside me. Annabelle. I had a sister, and they had erased her. My fists clenched. They spent their whole lives making sure no one could escape them. Now it was my turn. They erased one daughter. They would never erase another. They spent their lives controlling others, erasing what they didn't like, manipulating what they couldn't erase. But I wasn't a child anymore, and I was done playing their game. The boardroom was silent. Oren and Marlo Monroe sat at the polished mahogany table, their expressions carefully composed. Their designer clothes and forced poise screamed power, but it was a farce. They were drowning, and they knew it. They thought I was here to negotiate. They thought I was going to fold, give in, and save them like the obedient daughter they never deserved. I sat across from them, my hands steady, my heart cold. I had spent my entire life running. But today, I was the one setting the trap. Oren was the first to speak. "Let's not waste time, Kira." His voice was firm, controlled. "We both know why we're here. You're angry, I get it. But this—" He gestured toward the legal team seated beside me. "This isn't necessary. We're family. We can settle things privately." I smiled. Cold. Detached. "You think this is about anger?" I leaned forward. "This is about consequences." Marlo shifted uncomfortably, her manicured fingers twisting the edge of her silk scarf. "Sweetheart, please, don't let outsiders poison our families." I slammed the first file onto the table. They flinched. "Stolen trust fund," I said evenly, tapping the pages in front of them. "Financial fraud, illegal asset transfers, tax evasion, and that's just the beginning." Marlo's face drained of color. Oren clenched his jaw, but his mask didn't crack. Not yet. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice flat. "I had someone very good look into you," I replied. "Turns out, erasing paper trails isn't as easy as erasing daughters." Silence. A beat too long. Oren's fingers curled into fists. "You don't understand." I dropped the second file. "Annabelle." Marlo's breath hitched. I had their attention now. "You always thought you were untouchable," I murmured, flipping the pages, watching their eyes dart from document to document. "You stole my money, my future. But what you did to Annabelle?" I exhaled, voice sharp as a blade. "That's a new kind of evil." Marlo's hands trembled. "We had to—" "You had to what?" I snapped. "Erase your own child? Bury her existence?" I leaned closer, my voice low, venomous. "Tell me, Mother, what happened to Annabelle?" Her lips parted. No words came out. Oren's jaw tightened, his silence absolute. Because they knew, and they knew that I knew. For the first time in my life, I watched my father hesitate. The tension in the room thickened, suffocating. Then I placed the final document in front of them. A signed deal. A choice. "Here's how this plays out," I said, my tone sharp, professional, ruthless. "You either take the deal, cooperate with law enforcement, and quietly disappear into the mess you created, or you fight." I tilted my head. "And if you fight?" "Everything goes public. Every crime, every lie, every person you destroyed." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "I don't care which option you choose, because either way—" I smiled. "You lose?" Marlo broke first. She sagged in her chair, her breath coming in uneven gasps. "Kira, please," she whispered. "I did what I had to do. I was protecting this family." I laughed, short, hollow. "You didn't protect anyone," I spat. "You enabled him. You covered for him. You erased a child like she was an inconvenience." Her lip quivered. For the first time in my life, I saw her for what she really was. Weak, pathetic, a coward who let the monster win. Oren, though, he wasn't weak, he was furious. His eyes met mine, sharp as razors. "You think you're going to destroy me with this?" I tilted my head. "I know I am." The silence stretched. Then Oren exhaled through his nose, his shoulders relaxing as he leaned back. His expression was unreadable, calculated, and I knew that look. It was the look he always had before he won. "You're your mother's daughter," he muttered. "So emotional." A sharp pang hit my chest. A reflex. But it was the last time his words would ever touch me. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of him. I smirked. "And you're a fraudulent criminal with no way out." I slid the pen across the table. "Sign the papers, Dad." His jaw twitched. His pride screamed at him to resist. But he picked up the pen. And he signed. I stood up. Oren and Marlo stayed seated, their world crumbling around them. They had spent their whole lives winning. But today they lost. I turned toward the door, walking away. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. The war was over. But wars leave wreckage in their wake, and some wounds don't heal just because the battle is won. The cafe was quiet, the low hum of conversation blending with the clinking of silverware against porcelain. The kind of place meant for first dates and soft reunions, not for final goodbyes. I had chosen this spot deliberately. Neutral ground. A place where history couldn't sink its claws into me, where the ghosts of my past couldn't twist my emotions into something I didn't want to feel. Across from me, the seat remained empty. For now. I had given Vesper one chance, a single meeting, no second invitations, no open-ended promises. If she wanted to talk, this was it. I stirred my coffee, watching the steam rise. The door opened. I knew it was her before I even looked up. Vesper hesitated just inside the entrance, scanning the room like a nervous child entering a principal's office. When her eyes found mine, something flickered across her face. Guilt, hesitation, regret. Good. She walked over, slow and careful, as if expecting me to vanish before she got the chance to speak. She sat. Neither of us said a word. Finally, she exhaled. "I don't expect you to forgive me." I took a sip of coffee. Good. Her hands tightened around the edge of the table, but I still needed to say it. I let the silence stretch, watching her fidget under the weight of it. She had once been my sister. Now she was just someone who shared my blood. "I wanted to believe they weren't as bad as you said," she admitted, voice cracking. "I wanted to believe we could still be a family." I let out a quiet laugh, sharp, bitter. "There was never a family, Vesper. You just didn't want to see it." She flinched, but she didn't argue. I leaned back in my chair, tapping my fingers against the ceramic mug. "What do you want from me?" She swallowed, looking down. "I don't know." "Then why are you here?" She hesitated. Then, in a whisper, "Because I don't want to lose you, too." I stared at her, searching for something, anything, that would make me believe her, but I couldn't. Because love without trust was just an open wound waiting to be torn apart again. And I was done bleeding. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and placed it between us. She frowned. "What's this?" "The truth," I said. "Read it." Her fingers shook as she unfolded it. Annabelle's birth certificate, the missing persons report, the statement Marlo had filed to erase her from existence. Vesper's lips parted, eyes scanning the words. I watched as her world shattered. "Oh my God!" Her hands trembled. "I didn't. Kira, I didn't know." I tilted my head. "Didn't you?" Tears welled in her eyes. I swear to you, if I had known." I held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "I don't care." She blinked. "What?" I exhaled, slow and deliberate. "I don't care what you knew or didn't know. I don't care what you regret. You made your choice, Vesper, and I made mine." She stared at me, lips parted, waiting for something, mercy, understanding, absolution. I had none left to give. I stood, pulling a few bills from my wallet and dropping them onto the table. "I have a life to live," I said, my voice steady, "and it doesn't include them." I met her eyes, cold and unwavering. "I don't know if it includes you either." Her breath hitched, but she nodded. She didn't argue, because she knew. She had already lost me. The sun was lower in the sky when I stepped outside, the warmth of the day fading into evening. A small figure waited by the car, his hands shoved into his jacket pockets. Elliot. His brown eyes lifted when he saw me, a soft, knowing smile tugging at his lips. All done? I nodded. He climbed into the passenger seat, buckling himself in as I slid behind the wheel. The cafe, the past, the weight of old wounds, they all sat behind me. I gripped the steering wheel, inhaling deeply. For the first time in years, I could finally breathe. Life teaches us lessons in the harshest ways, but sometimes those lessons aren't about survival. They're about choosing to live on your own terms. For years, I believed healing meant making peace with the past, that understanding my parents' choices would free me from the weight I carried. But some people will never give you closure. They won't admit their mistakes, feel remorse, or change. Waiting for an apology that will never come only keeps you chained to the ones who hurt you. Healing isn't about them, it's about you. You don't need their permission to move forward. You don't have to carry their sins. You are allowed to walk away, even if they call you heartless, ungrateful, or try to pull you back with guilt. Your peace is worth more than their approval. If this video touched your heart, drop a 1 in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. And if you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe so you never miss one. My parents thought it would be hilarious if I missed my flight home. Let's see what she can do. Hi, my name is Kala and my family. They decided my life was nothing more than a joke. It started with a lie, one that left me stranded, alone, at an airport, waiting for a flight that wasn't even real. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but then I saw the messages. Laughing at me, mocking me. They didn't forget me. They wanted to leave me behind. But the worst part? That was just the beginning. They stole from me, manipulated me, used my name to take out loans I never agreed to. And when I finally cut them off, when I refused to be their safety net, they tried to ruin me. Public humiliation, lies, threats. They did everything they could to make sure I failed without them. And for a while, I believed them. The airport buzzed with life. Loudspeaker announcements, hurried footsteps, distant laughter. But I stood still, my duffel bag slipping from my grip as I reread the flight confirmation for the third time. Yesterday. The ticket was booked for yesterday. A cold weight settled in my stomach. I scrambled for my phone, my fingers clumsy as I dialed my father's number. The call rang, once, twice, voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. My chest tightened. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrolled through my messages, hoping, praying for some kind of explanation. And then my phone buzzed. Ronan! Damn, sis! Looks like you're stuck. Let's see how you survive now. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't a mistake. It was a joke, a cruel, twisted game orchestrated by my own family. I forced my feet to move, scanning the crowd like I could somehow will them back. Like this was some kind of sick prank, and any second now, my father would appear, arms crossed, waiting for me to admit defeat. The loudspeaker crackled overhead. Final boarding call for Flight 207 to Denver. Passengers, please proceed to Gate 14 immediately. A couple hurried past me, laughing. A child clutched her mother's hand, dragging a stuffed rabbit behind her. A lump lodged in my throat. Then another buzz. Lilith! You'll be fine, Kala. You always figure things out. A single tear slid down my cheek. They weren't coming back. My hands trembled as I checked my wallet. $23.50. An expired student ID. A receipt from some gas station. I opened my suitcase. A few clothes, no toothbrush, no charger. Panic clawed at my chest. I was alone. I spent that first night in a corner of the terminal, curled up in a plastic chair, watching flights I would never be on blink across the departure screens. By morning, the airport had grown unfamiliar. Cold, sterile. A place that didn't belong to me. The coffee shop cashier eyed me suspiciously when I counted out crumpled bills for the cheapest thing on the menu. I walked until my feet ached. until the automatic doors whooshed open and I stepped into the Texas heat. The city stretched before me, loud, fast, indifferent. I had nowhere to go. A year passed. I learned to survive. I found work at a diner, a greasy spoon on the edge of town, the kind of place where the coffee was burnt and the jukebox only played half the songs. I scrubbed dishes. I bussed tables. I worked until my fingers ached, then did it all over again the next day. I slept in a room above a laundromat, where the walls were thin and the air smelled like detergent and mold. I kept my head down. Marlo, the owner, didn't ask questions. She watched me, sharp-eyed but silent, like she could see the cracks in me but knew better than to pry. And maybe, for the first time, I was free. No one controlled me. No one dictated my future. But survival had a cost. I had no safety net, no family, no one to call if things went wrong. And they did go wrong. It was a slow night. I was wiping down a table when the door opened, and a voice I hadn't heard in over a year slithered through the diner. "Well, well, so this is where you ended up." I froze. Cormac Whitmore stood in the doorway, the same tailored suit, the same cold eyes scanning the room, taking it all in with thinly veiled disgust. The diner fell silent. The cook behind the counter stopped mid-motion, spatula hovering over the griddle. The couple in the booth by the window turned to watch. Cormac took a slow step forward. "This is what happens when you think you can survive without family, Calla. You were supposed to be better than this." I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around the rag in my hand. "What do you want?" He scoffed, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I told you, you were never going to be more than a waitress scraping by." Guess I was right. Heat rushed to my face. He was enjoying this. He wanted me humiliated, small, just like before. But I wasn't the same girl they left behind. "You done?" Marlo's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She stood by the counter, arms crossed, unimpressed. "Or should I get someone to escort you out?" Cormac let out a low laugh, shaking his head. "I don't need to waste another second here." He turned and walked out. Didn't even look back. I should have felt relief. Instead, I gripped the counter so tightly my knuckles went white. Anger burned beneath my skin. No more running, no more pretending. I would prove them wrong. But proving them wrong meant facing something I never wanted to see again. My past. It had been 5 years since I'd been left behind. 5 years of scraping by, building something out of nothing, convincing myself that I was untouchable. I wasn't. I had my own tiny apartment now, a single-room space above a laundromat that smelled like detergent and desperation. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I worked long shifts at the diner, saved every penny, and ignored the ghosts of my past. Until the past came knocking. The phone rang early that morning. "Ms. Whitmore, we need to discuss the outstanding loan under your name." I frowned. "Loan?" "I don't have a loan." A pause. "Ms. Whitmore, there's a $15,000 loan in your name, opened last year." Everything in me went still. "That's not possible," I said, my voice sharper now. "Send me the paperwork." Minutes later, the email came through. My fingers trembled as I opened the attachment. And then my stomach dropped. There it was. A loan document. My name, my supposed signature, and a cosigner, Ronan Whitmore. I gripped my phone so tightly I thought it might crack. My own brother had stolen my identity. He had taken out a loan in my name, let the debt pile up, and never once thought to warn me. My phone buzzed again. A text. From him. "Guess you found out. No big deal, just fix it." A slow, simmering rage spread through me. I had spent 5 years cutting them out. 5 years proving I didn't need them. And they still found a way to use me. I didn't call Ronan. He wasn't worth it. I called her instead. The phone barely rang once before she answered. "Oh, Calla, sweetheart, it's been so long." My throat tightened. That voice, honeyed, soft, like she had been waiting to hear from me. Like she hadn't erased me from her life. I forced steel into my tone. "Did you know?" A pause. Know what, darling? About the loan. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, in a voice just barely above a whisper, she admitted, Yes. I closed my eyes. She kept talking, rushing the words now. But you have to understand, Calla. Ronan was in trouble. He needed help. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. He needed help. My voice shook. So you let him steal from me? Lilith sighed, the sound of a woman exhausted by her own choices. We thought you'd be okay, Calla. You've always been so independent, so strong. Ronan just what? I snapped. Needed someone to clean up his mess, and you let him use me? Tears filled her voice now. I didn't know what else to do. You could have chosen me, I said quietly. Just once. Silence. I didn't wait for an excuse. I hung up. The betrayal was worse than the night they abandoned me. That night, at least, they had let me go. Now, I realized, they had never let me go at all. I sat in my dimly lit apartment, the loan document crumpled in my hands. I could fix it. I could pay it off, take the hit just like always. Or I could fight back. A cold, hard certainty settled in my bones. They didn't get to use me anymore. I grabbed my laptop and started typing. First step? Closing every door they could use to reach me. I locked my credit, froze every account, filed a fraud report. Next step? Finding out just how deep this mess went. I wasn't cleaning up after them. I was burning it all down. If they wanted me to fix their mess, they'd regret ever thinking I would. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Cutting off my family should have been the end of it. I had taken back control, locked down my finances, and ensured they couldn't steal from me again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more. More damage, more lies. And if there was one thing I had learned about Ronan, it was that he never stopped at just enough. So, I started searching. I combed through my bank statements, line by line, looking for anything out of place. Most of it was normal: rent payments, groceries, my small savings deposit at the end of each month. But then I checked my credit report, and my stomach dropped. A second account, one I had never opened. It was drained dry. Not just that, there were thousands in cash advances linked to my name over the past 2 years. My heart pounded as I cross-checked the withdrawals. Most of them had been taken out near East Austin, close to an area notorious for illegal gambling. And then I saw the name: Apex Financial Holdings. I opened a new tab and started searching. It took less than 5 minutes to confirm my worst suspicion. Apex wasn't just any financial company. It was a shell business, a front for loan sharks. And it was owned by a man I had only heard whispers about: Dante Morales. A criminal. A man who didn't deal in negotiations. He dealt in consequences. My fingers tightened around my phone as a sick realization settled in my gut. Ronan didn't just steal from me. He had dragged me into something much, much worse. I knew I should stay out of it, let Ronan burn for his mistakes. But if my name was tangled in this mess, I needed to know how deep it went. That's how I ended up outside a warehouse in East Austin at nearly midnight. The place looked abandoned, but I knew better. The street was too quiet, the kind of silence that only came when people knew better than to ask questions. My pulse pounded as I stepped inside. The air was thick with sweat, cigarette smoke, and something else. Fear. And then I saw him. Ronan. He looked wrecked, bruises on his cheek, split lip, clothes wrinkled like he had been sleeping in them. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I saw him. Dante Morales. He sat at a table, dressed in a perfectly pressed suit, completely at ease. 2 men flanked him, still as statues, their expressions unreadable. He barely glanced at me before smirking. "So you're the sister," he said, his voice smooth. "The one with the clean record." I kept my face blank. "I have nothing to do with this." Dante leaned forward slightly, folding his hands together. "See, that's the thing. Your brother said otherwise." My jaw clenched. I turned to Ronan, who wouldn't meet my eyes. "Calla, please," he muttered. "You can fix this." Fix it! Like I had been doing my entire life. Dante slid a document across the table. A debt contract, $50,000, and my name, forged, as a co-signer. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. Ronan hadn't just dragged me into his mess. He had signed my name into a deal with a criminal. I exhaled slowly, forcing my hands to stay steady. I looked Dante in the eye. "I didn't sign this, and I'm not paying a damn cent." Silence. Then Dante smiled. A slow, knowing smile that sent a chill down my spine. "That's unfortunate," he murmured. "Because your brother here—" He nodded to his men. They grabbed Ronan, shoving him forward. He stumbled, barely catching himself before hitting the table. "Is running out of time," Ronan whimpered. I barely recognized the sound. My brother, the same man who had laughed when they left me at that airport, looked at me now like I was his last chance at survival. His fingers wrapped around my wrist. "Calla, please," he whispered. "If I don't pay—" I yanked my arm free. "You did this to yourself." His face twisted in desperation. "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," I snapped. "You just made the wrong one." Dante let out a soft chuckle, like he was watching an interesting show. "Family is funny like that," he mused, "always leaving behind collateral damage." I refused to let him rattle me. I turned on my heel and walked away, my heart hammering. I knew this wasn't over. Dante wouldn't forget my face. And Ronan? Ronan wasn't done using me. I had just declared war against my own brother. And my family? They were about to escalate this fight. I had done everything right. I cut off all contact, blocked Ronan's number, notified my bank of every fraud risk imaginable. I even filed a report, though I knew damn well that people like Dante Morales didn't care about what was legal. I tried to move on, but my family didn't believe in moving on. They only believed in getting what they wanted. So, when my phone rang one evening with an unknown number, I almost ignored it. Almost. I shouldn't have picked up. "Calla?" A voice I hadn't heard in years. "Lilith." She sounded different, weaker, shaky. "Please, sweetheart, just meet us for dinner. We need to talk." Every fiber of my being screamed no. But there was something in her voice, real desperation, and for a split second, I felt the pull. One last time. They picked the place on purpose. Some fancy restaurant downtown. A place where people like us didn't belong. The kind of place where everything was white tablecloths and fake politeness, where the rich ate steak while drowning in debt. And sure enough, they were already seated when I walked in. Cormac, composed, cold, looking at me like a business opportunity. Lilith, red-eyed, clutching tissues like an actress mid-performance. And Ronan, silent, ashamed, or pretending to be. I didn't sit down. "Whatever you're about to ask, the answer is no." Cormac barely reacted, just folded his hands like he was negotiating a deal. "We're not here to fight, Calla. We need your help." I crossed my arms. "That's new." Lilith reached for me, her voice soft, pleading. "Ronan made mistakes. We all did. But we're family, and family helps each other." The words were so hollow, I almost laughed. Cormac reached into his jacket and slid a document across the table. I didn't pick it up. "You should read it," he said smoothly. So I did, and my blood went ice cold. A notarized contract. A legal agreement making me financially responsible for Ronan's debt. $50,000. Owed to Dante Morales. I inhaled sharply. Cormac's voice was steady. "Sign this, and we'll take care of the rest. Dante will leave you alone." Lilith grabbed my hand. Her fingers were trembling. "Please, baby, it's just money." I stared at her, then at Ronan. He hadn't said a word. Finally, he spoke, quiet, hesitant. "I'll pay you back, I swear," and that's when I did laugh. A deep, bitter sound that made Cormac's jaw tighten. I leaned forward, looking each of them dead in the eye. "You think I'm that stupid?" Cormac's smile thinned. It's the right thing to do, Calla. I shook my head, disgust curling in my chest. The right thing would have been not stealing from me. The right thing would have been not abandoning me in an airport and then coming back years later, expecting me to fix your mess. Lilith flinched. Don't say that. I stood up. Enjoy your dinner. Cormac's voice turned sharp, low enough that only I could hear. If you walk away, don't expect us to be there when you need us. I froze for half a second. Then, I turned back. And I smiled. You were never there to begin with. I walked out. They just made their last mistake with me. And Ronan? He wasn't done playing dirty yet. It had been 2 days since the dinner, and I had expected the retaliation to come immediately. But the silence was worse. My family didn't do silence. It meant something was brewing. I tried to focus on work, but the air at the diner felt different. The usual chatter among customers had shifted. Conversations dropped when I passed by. A few people shot me quick glances, then looked away just as fast. Marlo caught my wrist as I cleared a table, her grip firm. You need to see this, Calla. She handed me her phone, and I barely had to glance at the screen before my stomach turned to stone. A post on a local Austin community page. Some people just abandon their family when things get tough. Calla Whitmore. What a heartless, selfish disgrace. I gritted my teeth as I scrolled. Hundreds of shares, hundreds of comments, people I didn't know, dragging my name through the mud. Some called me ungrateful. Some said I should be ashamed. Some even suggested that someone like me didn't deserve to work in a place like this. I didn't have to check the account that posted it. I already knew it was Ronan. He hadn't just come after me. He was trying to ruin me. My grip tightened around the phone as I scrolled, scanning the endless flood of strangers judging me over a story they knew nothing about. This wasn't just a warning. This was a public execution. I stormed out of the diner, barely hearing Marlo calling my name. My hands shook, but not from fear. From rage. I dialed his number. He picked up immediately, smug. Waiting. You think this is funny? I snapped. Ronan sighed dramatically. I don't know what you're talking about, sis. Bullshit. Take it down. Now silence. Then, laughter. Or what? That voice. The same one I'd heard my entire life. The one that lied, manipulated, stole, and still thought he could get away with it. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. You think walking away makes you safe? Ronan said smoothly. It doesn't. People remember things, and so do I. It wasn't just a taunt, it was a threat. I forced my voice to stay calm. Controlled. Try me, Ronan. I dare you. He chuckled. We'll see about that. And then the line went dead. I didn't panic. I planned. First, I called a lawyer. I need to talk about a defamation case. Then, I locked down everything. Every social media account, every email. I scrubbed any public trace of my past, my job, my life. If he wanted to destroy me, I'd make damn sure there was nothing left to target. I warned Marlo. This might not be over, I told her. She just nodded, arms crossed. You let me know if I need to throw someone out. And then I made a decision. This wasn't just about family anymore. This was war. If Ronan wanted to play dirty, I'd make sure he regretted it. And then, just as I expected, they escalated things again. The smear post had doubled in reach overnight. The comments were relentless. Strangers who didn't know a damn thing about me were tearing me apart online, calling me selfish, ungrateful, a disgrace. And at the diner, the shift in energy was undeniable. People whispered when I passed by. Customers who used to chat now avoided eye contact. Even Marlo seemed to be watching me differently, like she was waiting to see if I'd break. I wouldn't. But I should have known this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The door swung open with too much force. I didn't have to look up. I already knew. Cormac, Ronan, Lilith. They walked in together, like a perfectly staged scene. Cormac adjusted his expensive suit, eyes scanning the place with the disgust of a man who thought he was better than everyone here. Lilith clutched her purse like the air itself might dirty her. And Ronan? He leaned against the counter with that same smug smirk he had been wearing since we were kids, like he was always one step ahead, always in control. The diner went silent. I felt every set of eyes shift to me. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. They came here for one reason: to humiliate me. Cormac spoke first, his voice loud on purpose. "Calla, we need to talk." I crossed my arms. "We have nothing to talk about." Lilith stepped forward, her voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "Please, Calla, we just want to understand why you're doing this to us." My stomach twisted. That tone, that same fake pleading voice she had always used to make me doubt myself. People started whispering. I could feel them forming their own opinions, deciding whether I was the villain or the victim. Ronan shook his head, laughing under his breath. "You really have no shame, do you?" His voice dripped with disappointment, like he was the one who had been wronged. "After everything we did for you?" I clenched my fist so hard, my nails dug into my palms. Cormac tilted his head, assessing me. "You think you're better than us now?" His voice was smooth, patient. "This little diner job, this life you're trying to build, it's pathetic, Calla." Something snapped inside me. I took a step forward. My voice was sharp, cutting. "You don't get to come in here and act like you're the victims." The diner was dead silent. I took another step. "You abandoned me." Another. "You stole from me." My voice rose, cutting through the room. "And now, when I finally cut you off, you come crawling back. Why? Because you need something?" Cormac's expression darkened. "Watch your tone, Calla." I laughed, cold, humorless. "Or what? You'll leave me stranded again?" Ronan scoffed, shaking his head. "You really think you can just walk away from us?" I met his eyes. I already did. Lilith started crying. "We're your family." My voice was ice cold. "Number you were just the people who raised me." Marlowe stepped in then, her voice calm but firm. "You heard her! Get the hell out!" Cormac held my gaze for a long moment. And then, just like that, he turned and walked out. Lilith followed, still clutching her purse like she had just survived something horrific. Ronan was the last to leave. But before he stepped through the door, he turned back, locking eyes with me one last time. He wasn't done, but neither was I. The diner stayed silent for a long moment. Then Marlowe exhaled. "You okay?" I let out a slow breath. But I will be." I looked around, meeting the gazes of my coworkers, the customers still watching me. Some were sympathetic, some were still judging me. But none of it mattered anymore, because I knew the truth. And now so did everyone else. They wanted to humiliate me. Instead, they showed the world exactly who they really were. And that's when they decided to destroy me for real. I thought the public showdown at the diner had been the climax. The moment they realized I was done, the moment they'd slink back into the shadows, licking their wounds. I was wrong. They came harder. The smear campaign got worse. Ronan doubled down online, spreading lies so outrageous they should have been laughable. But people believed them anyway. Cormac called my workplace. He told Marlowe that I was troubled, a disgrace, that I was stealing from family, and a danger to customers. Lilith left voicemails, sobbing, begging. "You don't understand what you're doing, Calla. This is killing us. It's breaking your father's heart." Their desperation reeked of manipulation. But the final straw? Cormac showed up at my apartment. The knock was sharp, demanding. I ignored it. Then his voice came through the door, low and full of venom. "You think this is over, Calla? You're nothing without us." My hands clenched into fists. Every instinct told me to stay silent. But I was done hiding. I opened the door. Cormac stood there, smug. Ronan just behind him, arms crossed like a soldier waiting for orders. Lilith clutched her purse, her eyes already red, like she was preparing for a performance. Cormac smiled, like he had already won. I didn't let him speak. I pushed past him, stepping onto the sidewalk. Somewhere public, visible. If he wanted a fight, he wasn't going to get it behind closed doors. They followed me. The plaza was busy. People walking, shopping, a few sitting at the cafe across the street. Perfect. Cormac's voice cut through the air, sharp and polished, like a weapon he'd wielded his whole life. You owe us, Calla. We gave you life, and this is how you repay us? People turned to watch. Lilith sniffled, her voice wounded. We just want our daughter back. Ronan sneered, shaking his head. You think you're special? You're still the same scared little girl we left at that airport. I sucked in a slow breath. Calm, controlled, deadly. Then I stepped forward. You don't own me anymore. Cormac's eyes flashed. You were a mistake. The air went still. For a moment, no one moved. I saw real hate in his face. Not just anger, not just frustration, pure, seething resentment. And I realized something. He had never wanted me to survive without them. They needed me to fail, because if I could succeed without them, then their power meant nothing. I reached into my bag. I pulled out a check, and I handed it to him. $73.50, the exact cost of a one-way bus ticket back home. That's what it would have cost me to go back, if I ever wanted to. Cormac's face turned red. He snatched the check, ripped it in half, and let the pieces flutter to the ground. His voice shook with rage. You ungrateful little... Security appeared. 2 uniformed guards. Is there a problem here? Cormac stepped back, barely containing his fury. Ronan spat at the ground, then turned and walked away. Lilith gave me one last tearful look before following them. I didn't watch them go. I already knew. They had nothing left to take from me. That night, my phone rang. Marlo. You okay? I hesitated, then nodded to myself. Yeah. I think I am. The past doesn't disappear overnight. But for the first time, I was no longer chained to it. They wanted me to be nothing without them. But I was finally free. And now, for the first time in my life, I could finally decide who I wanted to be. It had been a week since I severed the last rotting thread that tied me to my family. A week of silence. No manipulative texts, no guilt-tripping calls. Just silence. And at first, it felt like victory. But victory didn't feel like I thought it would. The quiet was too loud. I had spent my whole life fighting, bracing for the next hit, waiting for the next demand, the next cruel word disguised as love. And now, there was nothing, no enemy, no war, just me. And I didn't know what to do with that. The knock on my door was soft, hesitant. I almost didn't answer. But when I opened it, Ezra stood there, a bag of takeout in his hands. No dramatic speeches, no questions, just understanding. I stepped aside to let him in, and we sat on the couch, eating quietly. For the first time in days, I wasn't alone. Ezra broke the silence first. You don't have to pretend you're okay with this, he said, voice low. I exhaled, setting down my chopsticks. I know, but I also know this was the right thing to do. He nodded, squeezing my hand. And for the first time, I didn't flinch at someone reaching out. The next morning, I walked into Marlo's diner, my second home. Marlo stood behind the counter, arms crossed, shaking her head. Took you long enough. I blinked. What? She gestured around. You've been walking around like a damn ghost for the past week. I was wondering when you'd finally snap out of it. A small laugh slipped out. So? You're saying I should stop sulking? Marlo smirked. I'm saying you're wasting time. Life's waiting for you, kid. And just like that, something shifted inside me. My past didn't define me. I had people who actually cared about me. For the first time, I truly believed it. Later that day, Marlo slid a small envelope across the counter. I frowned, opening it. Inside was a set of keys. I looked up, confused. What's this? Marlo leaned against the counter, casual as ever. A fresh start. A space of your own. If you're ready. I looked down at the keys, my heart hammering. It wasn't just a gift. It was a lease, a restaurant lease. Marlo was giving me a shot to open my own place. No strings attached. I gripped the keys tightly, emotion swelling in my chest. I don't know what to say. Marlo shrugged. Then don't say anything. Just do something with it. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about a restaurant. This was about finally building something that was mine. For the first time, my future was in my own hands, and I wasn't about to waste it. Months had passed since I held those keys in my hands, uncertain and terrified, since I stepped into the empty space that would become mine. Now I stood in the middle of my restaurant. My restaurant. It wasn't perfect. The floors had scuff marks that wouldn't buff out. The chairs were mismatched because I could only afford secondhand, and the kitchen still had a few quirks that drove me insane. But it was alive. The air buzzed with laughter, with the clinking of plates, the hum of conversations. Every table was full. People came back. Not because they owed me anything, not because they needed something from me, but because they wanted to. Marlo sat at the counter, arms crossed, a knowing smirk on her face. "Told you," she said simply. I rolled my eyes. "Told me what?" "That you'd pull this off." Ezra walked in, sleeves rolled up, tying a borrowed apron around his waist. "And that you'd make it look easy," I scoffed. "If by easy, you mean working 17-hour days on my feet, sure." Ezra just grinned and grabbed a tray of drinks. I wiped my hands on my apron and took a slow, steady breath. This was it. This was what I had fought for. This was mine. Long after the last customer left, I sat alone in the quiet. For the first time in months, I did something I had promised myself I wouldn't. I checked social media. I never unfollowed them. I told myself it was out of indifference, but I knew better. I scrolled. Ronan was still a mess. He had moved on to new scams, still conning people, still making excuses. But people were catching on. The comments under his posts were full of accusations, people calling him out. No one was falling for it anymore. Cormac's world had crumbled. The hardware store had gone under. His posts were bitter, filled with legal battles over unpaid debts. Once, people in town respected him. Now, they ignored him. No one cared. Lilith still played the devoted mother. Her page was full of nostalgic posts. "Missing my family today. Hold your loved ones close." There were old pictures, holidays, smiling faces, but never any of me. That was when I finally understood. They had spent so long trying to pull me back, but not because they loved me, because they needed me. And now that I was useless to them, they had erased me completely. For the first time, it didn't hurt. I closed the laptop. I wouldn't check again. The past wasn't my concern anymore. I walked to the front of the restaurant, where Ezra stood with a dish towel slung over his shoulder, watching me. "You coming to bed?" I looked around one last time. This wasn't just a restaurant. It was proof. Proof that I survived. Proof that I won. I smiled. Yeah, I'm done here. They spent their whole lives trying to break me. But in the end, I built something better than they ever could. Before we wrap up this story, I want to leave you with something to think about. Life doesn't hand you a perfect beginning. Some of us are born into broken families, into situations where love is conditional, where survival means navigating manipulation, betrayal, and pain. But here's what I've learned. You are not bound by the people who try to break you. There will always be those who think they own you, whether it's family, society, or your past mistakes. They will try to convince you that without them, you are nothing. But that's a lie. The truth is, you get to decide who you become. Success is not revenge, it's freedom. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and build something better. So I want to ask you, have you ever had to walk away from someone who was holding you back? Was it family, a toxic friend, a job that drained you? What gave you the strength to finally say, "I deserve better"? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel something, hit that like button and type 1 in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. I want to connect with you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Because sometimes the best way to move forward is to know you're not alone. See you in the next one.